Hello, this is my last enrichment video. I'm going to tell you more about parabolas, just giving you high-level stuff. Well, I'm giving you everything, I'm just not giving you a lot to practice on, but you should have the idea of it, so next year you won't be so far behind. So, parabolas, last time, and I just looked at a couple of people that had turned stuff in. I didn't look at everyone's yet. But last time we said a parabola either opens upward or opens downward. We talked about the aspects of a parabola. So it may open down like this. And we talked about different characteristics. So for example, AOS, the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a, and that is where the x value where the vertex is of the parabola. And we also talked about vertex. We talked about X-intercepts. I didn't talk about, I don't think, but Y-intercepts. Usually just have one or is none Y-intercept. Y-intercept, so X-intercept is when y equals 0. So Y-intercepts is where x equals 0. And you could plug that value in and get the Y-intercept out. So typically for a Y-intercept, I have y equals, I'm just going to make one up, minus 5. Typically, your C value is your y-intercept, because if I put in 0, this is gone, so y equals negative 5. So typically it's your C value, okay? If everything is written in standard form and you're able to see it. Well, today I'm going to talk more about the vertex, how to find it. I just did it quickly, and we're going to do something that's called the quadratic formula. And what the quadratic formula does is give you the x-intercepts, or tells you if there's any x-intercepts. So quadratic formula. Sometimes it's called a quadratic equation. And I don't know if you remember by my clock in my room, I have a poster of it, and I hung it up when I started teaching Algebra 2. And you guys asked if we would use it. Some of you did. So the formula is this: negative b plus or minus. It has a plus or minus because it has a square root. For this lesson today, grab your calculator. It doesn't have to be a graphing calculator because we are going to sketch them. We don't need to graph them. You're going to go back to like when I was in college and I didn't have a graphing calculator. Okay. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Now, do you notice something? I'm going to use my highlighter. The start of the quadratic formula is negative b divided by 2a. And then the other part is the plus or minus because it's a square root. So today we're going to focus on the different aspects. So in the assignment I said to do the quadratic formula for 10 problems and then tell me the aspects of 5. Aspects, I mean, let me do, no, not a highlighter. Let me get a fancy little star or something. What's that? Oh, that's a flower. Okay. AOS would be an aspect, what the vertex is, what the x-intercepts are, and the y-intercept. So on 5 of the questions, I want you to identify that. Your question has 14 problems. I'm going to go over 11 through 14. And on 1 through 10, I want to use a quadratic formula, which I'll go over how to do now. And then on 5 of them, you pick your 5. I want you to do those 4 parts of it. If it's easy enough to factor, you don't have to do the quadratic formula. Okay, so this one I'm going to do just 11 and 12 on this page. So I'm going to get rid of these. So the quadratic formula. If you could factor the quadratic, factor it. That's the easiest way to find the x-intercepts. Factor and solve. If you cannot factor it, The next easiest way, and I'm just going to put QF. And again, it's your x value is negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Some calculators, you could enter everything all at once and find the x number. And then if it says no value or undefined, then it doesn't have any x-intercepts. It may be above or below the x-axis. But when you don't have a calculator like that, and the way I suggest you do it is start with the square root. Okay? So, do I want to show you vertex first or quadratic formula? Let's do vertex first. So that would give us a negative b over 2a. So this one, 11, I'm going to do the vertex. A is 3, b is negative 11, c is negative 4. This 0 just means it's an equation, just set it equal to 0. Now, remember the thing we said y-intercept is your c value, because if it's 0, 0, y-intercept is negative 4. X-intercepts, we're going to use the quadratic formula. The AOS is negative b, so it's a negative 11, so you change it to a positive 11 over 2 times a, 11 over 6, 3 times 2. And then to find the vertex, this is your x value. So 11 over 6 is my x value. So I need to put that into the equation and find out what my y value is at that point. So I'm going to do 3 times 11 over 6 squared. Everywhere there's an x, I'm going to put 11 over 6. 11 times 11 over 6 minus 4 equals your y. Now I'm going to use my calculator, and for this one you'll probably get a decimal. So what's that, 121 over 36? 3 times 121 divided by 36 minus 121 divided by 6. I got the same thing. It should be 36. Oh, I didn't do parentheses. 3 times parentheses 121 divided by 36. No, I guess it worked. Minus parentheses 121 divided by 6. Oh, minus 4. So I got a y value. I'll write it here. Y value is negative 14.08, so I say 0.1. So my vertex, this is for my vertex. I'll try to block those off. So my vertex is a point, and the point is 11.6, which 11 divided by 6 is 1.8, and 14.1. And then the last thing, which I didn't mention in the previous slide, A is positive, so it opens upward. So I'll do this one down below. So there is that. Now all I need to finish the aspects are the x-intercepts. So now I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b. So b is negative 11, so I'm going to put 11. All over, that line extends all the way 2 times a, so 2 times 3. And then I have plus or minus square root. Now this b squared is always going to be positive. If you put this in the calculator, you're going to get a negative. So either get in the habit of not putting a negative. Whenever I square something, I don't even put a negative sign because I know it's going to be positive. Or putting the parentheses and squaring it outside the parentheses. Minus 4 times a times c. Now this extends here, this extends there. So I said to start with the square root. So I get 11 over 6 plus or minus. Now let me do that. So it's 121 minus 4 times 3 times negative 4. Minus the square root of 169. So the square root of 169 is 13. So there are two answers for this x. X-intercepts, you could have none, 1, or 2. So there are two. So the first one is 11 plus 13, which is 24 divided by 6, right, which is 4. And the other one is 11 minus 13, so negative 2 over 6, which is negative 1/3. So there are my different aspects. There are my x-intercepts. I didn't write them as a point. There is my vertex. I can't draw a star. There's my y-intercept, and there's my AOS. All right, let me extend the page. X squared minus 9x plus 18. Let me do another one down here. Extend. Okay. X squared minus 9x plus 18. And so you put equals 0, or you could write y equals quadratic formula. Again, there's songs online and stuff to memorize it. I don't know. I memorized it by writing it over and over, I guess. I don't know. Some people say a square B, like a bumblebee. 4, that's a 4AC. Okay. So now this one. A is 1. B is negative 9. And C is 18. Okay, so I know right off the bat my y-intercept is 18. It opens upward because A is 1. My AOS is negative B, so it's a negative 9. So negative 9 is just 9 over 2A, which is 9 halves, or 4.5. Now, my vertex is hard to write. So 4.5 squared. I'm not going to put it in parentheses because it's positive, so it doesn't have to. I don't have to worry about that. 9 times 4.5. Oops. That's 4.5 plus 18. So my y value, this is my y of my vertex. I already know my x of my vertex. Is this. This is my x of my vertex. So I get 4.5 squared. Use the squared button. I noticed this year that a lot of people did a power or did a square and then changed it to different powers if it wasn't squared. Use a caret, like a part of a triangle, for powers. But if it's squared, use the squared button. Okay. So I get y to be negative 2.25. So my vertex is 4.5, negative 2.25. So picture where that's at, and my y-intercept's 18, so it opens upward. That's a big long stretch for it to cross a y. Okay, so I have vertex, I have AOS, I have y-intercept. Now I need the x-intercepts. Now, A, B, C, I will plug it in, but the easiest thing to do is what multiplies to 18 and adds to 9? I guess nothing, right? 9 and 2. Okay, so x equals negative b, so 9, negative, negative. So you always change the b sign there. Then you do plus or minus square root of b squared. So I'm going to say 9 squared because negative 9 squared and 9 squared are the same. 4 times 1 for A times 18 for C, all over 2A. 2 times 1. Okay, so if I start with the square root, if I start with this part right here, I could already tell it's going to give me an error. So why can I tell? Because it's 81, well, no, maybe it won't. 81 minus 4 times 18, what's 4 times 18? 3672. So 81 minus 4 times 18 is 9. So x equals, it didn't give me an error. If this second half is a negative and it's bigger, it'll give you an error and there's no x-intercepts, you're done. But so my answer is 9 plus or minus, and 81 minus 72 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3 over 2. So I have two answers, 9 plus 3, x equals 12 divided by 2, which is 6. I was going to write 6, I mean 6. And then 9 minus 3. 9 minus 3 is 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Okay, so there's your x-intercepts. That's your other part. All right, let's do 2 more. This one I'm going to move it up because we did those 2. Now here are these 2. Nope, I'm not going to move it up. All right, so now this one, let me go back to green. Quadratic formula, x equals negative b all over 2a. That's a short line, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. I clicked. My mouse went away. Let's go back to pen. I don't know why those lines, well, I know why they're there, because I clicked, I didn't mean to. So this line continues with the square root, and this line continues underneath. Okay, number 13, a is 4, b is negative 4, and c is negative 48. Now, so your y-intercept is negative 48. Now think of where that is on the graph. 0, negative 48 is way down. I could take out a 4 if I want to factor it for the x-intercepts, and I get a negative 12 and 1. There's nothing that multiplies to 1. I mean multiplies to 12 and adds to 1, so I'll use a quadratic formula on this. Okay, let's see what's next. AOS. Negative b, so 4. Remember you change the sign over 2a, which is 8. So 1/2 is your AOS, which is very close to 0. Vertex. So you put in 1/2. 4 times 1/2 squared minus 4 times 1/2 minus 48. And guess what? I could do this one without a calculator. So 1/2 squared is 1/4. 4 times 1/4 is 1. Half of 4 is 2, so 1 minus 2 is negative 1, minus 48 is negative 49. So, which makes sense. Let me just do a sketch real quick. So 1/2 is like, that's 1, that's 1/2. Negative 48 is your y-intercept, negative 49 is your vertex. So it's right by there. So your vertex is 1/2 negative 49. It opens upwards. That is crooked, but it's slanted. Just turn your head a little to the left and you can see that. Okay. Now we have to find the x-intercepts, and I'll do the same. I'll write that one down below. So x equals negative b, so positive 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, but it's negative, so I'm going to just do a positive 4 squared. Because negative 4 squared, positive 4 squared are the same thing, minus 4. That 4 is always there. This 4 is a, and then c is negative 48. All divided by 2 times a, which is 8. I'm going to write 2 times 4. Okay, so now to do the square root part in my calculator, I'm going to do, so I haven't been taking the square root when I do it. I'm just entering the number and then taking the square root in my head, or you could take the square root after if you don't know what it is. Because if you do the square root, it may say non-existent or no answer. Then means there's no x-intercepts. But I like doing the inside first because sometimes I make an error. So 16 minus 4 times negative 48. That's 784. I don't know the square root of 784 in the top of my head. So square root of 784 is 28. So I get 4 plus or minus 28 divided by 8. So 1x is 4 plus 28, 32 divided by 8, which is 4. That's an equal sign. And the other x is 4 minus 28, which is negative 24 divided by 8, which is negative 3. So there's those 4 aspects. Okay. 2x squared, 11x, 138. So 2x squared, 11x, 138. Is it minus 11x? No, it's minus 138. So the next one is 2x squared plus 11x minus 138. Again, I'll write the formula. Sorry, I'm concentrating on writing, so I'm not talking. Okay, so A is 2, B is 11. I'm glad this B is a positive, finally. Negative 138. Now, that's your y-intercept, because when x is 0, y is negative 138. Oh, I can't scroll down anymore. Okay, so y-intercept, negative 138, very far on the y-axis. It does open upwards because A is 2. AOS is negative B. So it's positive 11. So this one's going to be a negative 11 over 2 times A, which is 4. And then vertex is 2 times 11 fourths squared. Remember, I don't put a negative, but you can. You could do that, plus 11 times 11 fourths, negative 11 fourths. That one does make a difference because it's not squared, minus 138. So, 2 parentheses, 11 divided by 4 squared, plus negative 121 divided by 4 minus 138. Whew, I got a y of, I guess I don't need those equals, negative 153.1. So my vertex is 11 fourths, which is negative 2.75. Not far on the x, but on the y, it's negative 153.1. And again, it opens upward, crosses at negative 138 on the y, so the vertex has to be lower than that y-intercept. So there's that. Now let's do the x-intercepts. So I get negative 11. You always change that first b over 11 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 138. I don't know if I'll fit it. Divided by 2 times 2. Okay, so let me do the radical. 121 minus 8 times negative 138. 1225. Do you guys know what the square root of 1225? Ends in a 5, but I didn't know it. Okay, so it's 135. Oh, my board that I'm writing on is slanted. Okay, negative 11 plus or minus. Square root of 1225 is 35 all over 4. Now, if Usually when it works out to be a decimal, you can leave your answers like this. But if I want to know exactly what it is, if I want to graph it, it's negative 11 minus 35, which is negative 46 divided by 4. And you could reduce that. Or negative 11 plus 35, which is negative 24 divided by 4. Oh, no, positive 24 divided by 4. This is positive 35. So this is 6. And this reduces to 23 halves. When I'm doing this in class, I tell people to leave stuff as fractions. It's easier to work with for me to grade, except when you're plugging into a calculator like this. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Just because I'm not going to be posting any new videos for enrichment doesn't mean you can't ask me anything, or I won't explain stuff. I'll respond to you on the private comments when you do the assignment. But let me know if you need any help. Thanks.